Well, yeah, thanks for doing this. It's like I said, I was really looking forward to this because, you'd probably be aware. I'm a huge advocate of women in motorcycling, and I really wanted to kind of push that. And then when Rebecca made the connection, then I went, okay, this is perfect because you're a
Yeah.
motorcycle enthusiast, you coach on track, you've started, you can see how much you are an advocate for female riders, and it's awesome what you're doing. So, yeah, I'm keen to explore it.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I think there's a bit of a lag, so I don't want to talk over the top of you. So I'll just probably like wait a little bit after you speak just to make it a little bit easier. But yeah, so did you just want me to sort of start with my background and that sort of thing, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I wanted to kick off with that. I do want to ask you
Yep.
about the initiatives that you've got happening there. But before that, I mean, I love to get the backstory. How did you get
Yeah.
into motorcycling?
Okay, so I woke up one day when I think I was maybe like 18 or 17 or something like that, and I was like, I'm gonna ride a motorcycle. And I think it was really weird and a little bit different because a lot of people that I'd spoken to had sort of grown up dirt bike riding, or they'd had a history, or their family was into it. My family was all cars. So I was kind of like a bit of an awkward outlier where I was like, no, I'm going to go do something significantly more stupid and I'm going to go and get a motorcycle instead. So I just did it. I didn't know anyone who rode, I didn't know anything, and I just paid for a course or two. I got my learners back in those days in Queensland. You had to have your learners for like a day, I think. So I had my learners for a day. And then I immediately went and got my REs. As soon as I could upgrade from that, my first bike was a Ninja 300. As soon as I could upgrade from that, I did. And I immediately was again a bit of an idiot and I went straight to an R1. So I went to a 2008 R1, which was my baby at the time until it decided to explode. A reg rec and a stator and a fan and all that cool stuff. And from there, it became my life. I didn't know anything else. I didn't do anything else. It was everything. I made all of my friends through riding. I went to every social event I could find. It became, as I said, it became everything. It just took over. It was insidious.
It's like a
So
drug,
that's
isn't it?
kind of like, oh, yeah.
You took
Yeah.
a sniff, as I describe it, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah. I over the years I tried to do a bit more in terms of like track days and get um I would say a bit more experienced, but I was at uni at the time, so I was very poor. So people would always laugh at me, all of my friends, including Rebecca, because I would go and we'd have this ladies' day at the raceway every year at Morgan Park, and I would go and buy a bike with what little funds I had, do the track day, and then sell it directly after. So I ended up with all these different track bikes that I ended up trying, but I didn't know them very well at all. I would just buy this bike, hope it worked on the day, ride it, and then sell it straight after because I needed the money back for uni. So it was a not a great plan, but a plan nonetheless.
Were there aspirations to race or anything like that? Because you talked about, you got the motorcycle, your family were into cars, then you started doing track days and things like that. And we're talking road bikes, not dirt bikes.
Yes.
Was there aspirations on your part to race at all?
Um, I I always say this to people, even from the coaching perspective. I am not very competitive when it comes to bikes. I've got a little bit too much going on in my personal life to
Mm.
sort of risk it. But what I'm really passionate about is making other people as fast as humanly possible and a lot faster than me. Because, if people are willing to put their lives essentially on the line, or they're willing to go the next mile and really dedicate everything and all their money too, especially to racing because it's expensive,
Mm.
then obviously I want to help them do that and I want to get them to that point where they can be the best that they can be. But for me personally, I much prefer watching other people go a lot faster than me.
Yeah, that's cool. Was it like as you were riding, like you said, you probably didn't have aspirations to race, but you definitely had aspirations somewhere along the line, like you say, to go and help people. What prompted that?
So, I don't know if Rebecca said it yet, but I started a group back in like 8 years ago
Mm.
called East Coast Female Riders. So we have about 10,000 females in that now, and the idea behind that started off very small. I genuinely did not anticipate it getting this large. And the idea behind that was in Queensland, as I said, you've got to have your learners. Well, back when I did it, I feel so old. Back when I did it, it was only a day, but now it's 3 months minimum. And Queensland, I think, is one of the only states where you've actually got to be accompanied by an open class rider. So what I was seeing a lot of the time, and this is no offense to male riders because I say this often and they get very offended. Um, I was seeing, on these mixed pages that a lot of girls, potentially, well, a lot of the time young girls, would get their learners and they wouldn't know anyone, or much like I did myself. But the only option that they had to have someone accompany them was random people. So they would go onto these pages, they would ask for someone to accompany them for those 3 months, or, go on learner rides with them or whatever. And we were seeing an increase in sexual assaults, stalking, you name it, all the
Mm.
awful words here. And it was really, not only upsetting, but I felt like to myself as someone who was trying to help other people get into riding, how could I tell a woman come into this sport and then have that sort of happen to them?
Mm.
So I thought, okay, well, not only that, but I myself had a lot of people send me suspicious things. I also had a lot of people put me down or belittle me, and it didn't even have to be necessarily one gender, but I just wanted there to be a space where women could get into it safely and ask questions and be a little bit dumb. We're all a bit dumb sometimes. We have those days where we think to ourselves, oh, have I cleaned my chain? I'm probably not in a gajillion years. And so we just wanted to find like a way for women to ask those questions. Like, how do I clean a chain? How do I check my tire pressure? What should I have? All those silly things or things that they're not sure of yet because they didn't have somebody, I guess, guiding them into riding. And you couldn't do that on a lot of mixed pages. You would cop abuse, you would cop, again, like sexual photos or what have you. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll just start something small, like, something in Brisbane, like it's fine. Anyway, it turned out to be a very large niche and I accidentally created something quite big. And I wasn't alone in it. Like I could never have done, well, never gotten it to the size that it is without a gajillion people supporting it, volunteering their time, putting the efforts in. Like, the likes of the admin team who put this forward. And one of my biggest things that has been a really difficult reminder for me is I'm not a fan of being the center of attention. And so it makes me really uncomfortable. So I have to go to these events with, knowing that there's 10,000 women in this group that I've made, and I have to try and talk in front of people, and I'm so awkward, and and I genuinely could never have done any of this without those other admin team, volunteers, all these people, because we're a not-for-profit now. We've gotten to the size where we've had to sort of move over to being an incorporated association. And without them stepping in and helping me do the talking or, communicating with people or being the extrovert to my inherently introvert. So it's just been insane. And so that's kind of where the coaching and helping people came from, was that little, I guess, gist of road riding that's now turned into something a little bit more, because the more you see in the riding communities and the sport, the more you go, hang on a second, like there's so many ways that we could build this out for women specifically, and also people who are just nervous. Like you don't have to be a female to be nervous about riding or going to the track, but there is this very large gap between going from the road to going to the track or to racing, and nothing's really been done there yet.
It's interesting because, like you said, you didn't anticipate it was going to be like that. I got the page open at the moment, and yeah, like it's a private group on Facebook for those who are listening, East Coast Female Riders, and there's just under 10,000 members there. What's
Mhm.
interesting is I don't see your name anywhere, which is, like you say, there's no
Yeah.
drive on your part for you to be center of attention. So I think that's pretty admirable, as part of this. Um, what did you anticipate it would be like? Like, because I understand the reasons why. Well, no, let me get this right. I'm not one of those riders who would harass women at all,
Yes.
So I ride with women all the time, and I want to help them become better riders. Same
Just you
motivation
having
as
me on
you.
this podcast shows me that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But you've created the space for women to go to, and like you talking about the reasons for creating it for me is, how do I describe it? It's not surprising in some ways, in that I get it. I get there are
Yeah,
men out there who are going to see this as a dating application or, sorry, opportunity or,
pretty
a
much.
pickup thing, and there's something cool about a woman on a motorbike. But but for me, it's not, doesn't seem to be that common because I'm not exposed to it, as a recipient. So did you think it would be this big? Like it's 10,000 people. That's a fair.
No, I really didn't. And the bigger it gets, the more insane it gets, honestly. And this is also another thing that I say to people because we've obviously got sponsors and supporters too. So the kind of the way that it's become so big as well is we also sort out businesses or providers that would help women because again, it's not just about that side of things. It was also about the way we were treated. So perfect example, I went to buy an R1 with my partner. Um, back in like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And the place that I went to, and I won't name names, I walked in and I was the only person in the shop other than my partner who was just, standing back doing his thing. And they wouldn't speak to me at all. And I was like, hello, I'm the one buying the bike here. It's for me.
Yeah, right.
And they just would not acknowledge me. They just kept speaking to my partner. And he ended up saying, like, dude, it's not for me, it's for her. Like, speak to her. She's the one with the money doing the buying. Anyway, and they kind of laughed at it and they just sort of dismissed me. And when I said, oh, can I take it for a test ride? And I wanted to talk price and get the price of it down. And I wasn't new to it or anything. I'd owned a couple of 1,000cc bikes before. And the guy kind of scoffed and just like threw the keys at me and said, yeah, sure, take it around the block, don't crash it. And it was just that mentality where I couldn't even be taken seriously as someone who was about to drop $25,000 on a
Mm.
super bike, essentially, um, because I was a female. And when I tried to come back, like I just went, okay, you're not going to accompany me. Like I'm used to going on test rides where someone from the shop comes with you. He just literally was like, oh, you're barely going to get it out of the driveway. Um, when in it again, I literally had ridden my 1,000cc bike to the shop to test this one. So it was really
Yeah.
weird to experience. And there's so many experiences like that, both on the road and in the track scene, which again we can talk about later, but that just make it so inherently difficult for women that in the end you just feel so isolated. So
Mhm.
I didn't realize it would get that big. Sometimes I'm not surprised because these things happen and I go, ah, that's why this got so large. But the other part of it as well is that with ECFR, lots of other mini groups have popped up. And generally speaking, people might think, okay, well, wouldn't you find that that's a problem because they're trying to take your people? No, I think that's great. I think
Mm.
it's fantastic when people create their own groups as a result of finding their people in ECFR because not everybody is going to find someone out of 10,000 people. You're not going to get along with everybody, but you will find people that become like your little crew or your, friendship group or what have you. And then they end up making their own little groups that come off of that. And that to me shows it's community. That's what it's about. We don't make money in ECFR. We sell merch and that merch money goes back towards charities. So we donate to charities every year. We do charitable events. One of the first ones we did like it's actually really funny. We did a share the dignity ride, which is for women's sanitary products. So, a bunch of women on motorcycles carrying tampons and pads in their backpacks. It was really interesting. It's very funny. But like it's that kind of community, and you find that people find each other in these spaces. And again, they might have problems. Like we are very strict about who we let in and who we don't allow in. We don't tolerate bullying. We don't tolerate bigotry or anything like that because that's not what it's about.
Mm.
So I was surprised that it got as large as it did because I anticipated people would go and find their people, then find other groups and sort of, move on. But what one of the ladies, like the original members, Claire, who's also friends with Rebecca too, they're all great humans, said to me the other night was, we've started something that only begins to bring other good things about. And that in and of itself is kind of what the achievement was. And it got, unfortunately, it got so large that I had people abusing the crap out of me actually, because they wanted to be in the group, but they were in Perth. And I was like, look, it's literally in the name. Like, East Coast.
Yeah.
I feel like we've tried. Like we've got people from the top of Australia all the way down to Tasmania, South Australia, but when it gets to like WA, like that's a completely different time zone. So again, it begs that question that there is still space for it to get even bigger,
Mm.
to have even more people. And what other things are happening on that side of Australia too?
Well, that makes sense because it's not like it's a Facebook page and group, but essentially you get together and you ride. I mean, it's not like everyone just posts stuff, to their Facebook page.
Yep.
So the whole West Coast thing does make sense. Um,
Yeah.
to look at it from look at it from the other end, do you think that this has potential or there's a possibility that it creates more segregation from
Mhm.
the male side of it as well? Because, and I'm coming from my frame of reference where I love the idea of more and more women riding and riding with them. So, there's
Yeah.
some ladies in our little community to call it. Average age is probably about 60, but
Hey, they're the best. You learn so much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They don't ride slow, but the point
Yeah.
is the that mixing and that we have a real good banter, and I always wonder if this type of group potentially pushes or creates or drives that segregation. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that in theory, people might presume that that's the case, but I've found just through like it actually occurring that it's the complete opposite. What I find is that it gives women that space to ask the questions that they don't feel comfortable to ask in mixed spaces. But then they go and they take that knowledge and they
Mm.
apply it to riding with their male friends. In fact, a lot of the time, it's actually more complementary rather than segregating because what ends up happening is these women get significantly more confidence to then go and ride with mixed groups as a result of it. Like we even have women's rides, obviously, where we have like our areas that go out. So we've got area chats that are moderated again by volunteers who are fantastic at what they do. And they literally create women's dinners, women's rides, and what have you. But then what they also do is they create mixed ones where you can bring your partner, you can bring your son, your friend,
Right.
whoever, and you can start incorporating that a little bit more. But I find, especially as a starting point, just having that female frame of reference creates significantly more confidence, and it drives them to then go, okay, now that I feel better about the whole entirety of riding, I can then go and ride with other people and not feel so intimidated. So it's kind of like a base for them to start from and then move into those spaces. And to be honest, a lot of the time people join ECFR to ask those questions that you definitely can't ask in mixed ones. Like we have things about like, female anatomy that, on bikes, or female problems when they're
Mm.
riding, dealing with diseases like endometriosis and stuff that you could never post on a mixed group without dealing with insane amounts of crap, to put it bluntly. But then they still go on those mixed rides. They still go to track days with guys. They're still, they have partners who ride, or what have you. So I don't find it segregates. I think if it was very much one of those groups that was a bit more, trying to think of the right way to say it, but one of those like less happy about men existing groups, to
Mm.
put it like that, maybe. But we are completely neutral in that ground.
Mm.
Like we accept everybody who they are.
Yeah. Well, I think you worded it correctly. You said you're just creating a space which gives female riders an opportunity to do something that they may are they're experiencing negative
Mhm.
I don't know, consequences of or associations of or something. It's interesting what you said. It's interesting
I was
what you
just
said then
going to say
because
there's actually a really funny post that I'll mention, because if someone listens to this podcast from ECFR, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. A really long time ago, we have this infamous post that a lot of like the OG members will remember, and it was about a woman who had gotten a new piercing in a female space, if you will, and she was concerned about riding her motorcycle with that, and it became this just essentially like an ECFR wall of fame where everybody mentions it all the time because it was so funny. And the entire post had like hundreds of comments on it because this woman was like, oh, I want to get this done, but I'm not sure. And how's can I ride with it? And it was really funny. So again, you could never post that in a mixed group without
Mhm.
chaos. But yeah, and they always bring it up like every, I don't know, every couple of months you'll see someone comment and tag me or tag someone else and put like a hashtag and say like, the post or whatever. So Yeah, perfect example.
No, you just sold me on the group because
Yeah, you don't want to see that.
it's funny because like I'm a member of other groups, track day enthusiasts or whatever. I don't post much at all when it comes to groups, but I just, I just watch them and read it and things like
Yeah.
that. And what I do notice is that in those groups which are mixed, they're clearly mixed or predominantly male, they do bag and I don't know, like someone will post a question. It'll be the most common one is they'll post about a tire. They put a photo of their tire and they'll go, "You give me some
Mhm.
advice," and they get shit canned by people. But
Oh
people
yeah,
forget, they forget that where they are in their learning and knowledge, well, these people are new. They're starting from scratch and they have to go through the same process. It's not like the group matured at the same rate. It doesn't work that way. So,
exactly.
yeah, so you do see a lot of that, in the male dominated groups. And sometimes I cringe too because I think they're missing the point here. That it's being assholes, in the way they treat people.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of them do it for the sake of it. Like they think it's funny or they think it's, amusing and it helps their day get by. But ultimately, they don't realize what the impact is on that person behind the screen.
Mm,
And I think, some people might tolerate it, that's fine, but you don't know who that is. You don't know if they're in a bad space. You have no clue what their life is like. And I think for a lot of women too, we're going into a male dominated space. We're going into
mm,
something that's not just, more males than women. It is a male dominated. And so to ask a question, they've probably been thinking about asking that for a really long time, had to get the confidence up to go and do it. They finally go and do it, and then the first thing they get is they get ridiculed, they get belittled, or they get pictures sent to them that are of questionable character, stuff like that, and it just it turns off so many women from firstly getting involved, but it also isolates them and in trying to even ride a motorcycle to begin with. And there's been stories where women have genuinely just given up. Like they just can't tolerate dealing with that all the time. And that was what also drove me to go, like, no, that's not okay. Doesn't matter about gender, but ultimately this is what I can sort of create right now.
mm.
And that's the best I can do with what I've got. So that's where it started.
Yeah. Do you think, you spend time on track and, interact, particularly, because you're a part of MQ and, really
Yep.
into the motorbike scene. Do you think that it is evolving or moving in a positive direction, particularly in terms of track days and things like that?
It's a controversial topic right now. For women who get involved in track, I think it's significantly more open for them. I myself, and this is what has been a bit of a topic for me right now, have been dealing with, and I've got like admittedly a bit of a thicker skin because I've been dealing with it for so bloody long. But have been dealing with it myself in terms of the misogyny and the like belittlement, the abuse, the crap that I'm copying just for wanting to get into coaching and helping women. So I think at entry level, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's great. I would say the offerings for newbies and also for women, especially, completely not there. There's an entirety missing in the middle. And that's kind of what I was referencing before in terms of we've got track days and we've got people on the road, but there's not really anything sort of connecting in the middle. You get people who just get the confidence up and go, I'm just going to go do a track day and that's it. That's it. But that doesn't happen for a lot of women. And there's that real barrier to entry, like a lot of things that aren't considered. Like, again, I'll mention Claire, one of my good friends from ECFR. One of my favorite memories of her was her being an ECFR, and she came to a ladies' day and she just had her, I think, first child. And she had her baby in the little bassinet in the pit in between, and she had a really supportive husband and partner who was able to help her do that. But a lot of women don't have that. So when they have kids or when they've got other things that are going on, that they've got caring duties, they've got all those sort of traditional-ish
Mm,
roles to play, they don't have that entry or that accessibility. And then there is obviously the part where they are going into a male-dominated area. They don't know how to do it. They don't have the support to do it. There's no real introduction to getting to the track or what you need on the day or how you get to that point. You just end up sort of knowing someone who knows someone who knows someone who's done a couple of track days. And that's kind of where it's at currently. I mean, my dream, as I said to, again, Rebecca, was to turn up to a track day and there's more women than there is men.
mm,
I think we're very far off. But, that's a little fever dream I've got going on. Hopefully I see that in my lifetime. Because right now, I go to a track day, we've got 150 people, and there's maybe like on a really, really good day, maybe 4 or 5 women,
Mm.
maybe. On a good day. On other days, it's just me. And that really sucks to see. And that's kind of what I'm trying to bridge in the middle, because regardless of skill level, whether they're, a speed demon on the road or they're actually just cruising on the road, they should all have the opportunity to at least experience it if they want to. Someone to say, hey, this is how you get to the track. This is what you need on the day. These are the things you need to be mindful of. This is where you can get your gear from, because gear is a whole other story when it comes to women. Here's the opportunities you can take. This is what you need to remember. This is how you take a corner. Here's what an apex is. Because, you even in the places that do offer these beginner friendly groups, a lot of them, you'll get a coach that comes in and might not even necessarily be qualified, but they just come in and go, okay, here's your apex, go out and do it. Firstly, what the hell is an apex? If
Mm.
you're a newbie, you don't know what that means. You're just standing there going, okay, I'm just going to go out and hope for the best now. Not really sure what I'm doing. And then you end up with accidents, severe accidents sometimes, people who get scared on the track, overtaken by significantly faster people. And it ends up creating this space where women just go, clearly I'm not welcome. Clearly I'm not getting the help I need. I'm just not going to bother.
That would be, yeah, well, it's hard for me to comment on that because I don't get exposed to it. Fortunately through the superbike school, it's not that
Yes, you're like,
way
it's
of,
fine. You've got all of that covered. Yeah.
yeah. You said there's this missing piece in the middle, and I get a sense that that's why you started track start training. It's kind of that
Yes.
space in between, or that bridging piece. What do you think about organizations like the California Superbike School as a bridge in there? And you can talk openly to me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've always wanted to do CSS, to be honest, and it has been a dream of mine, but financially, I find it significantly less accessible. I
Hmm.
think as well because, and that's what a lot of people have said to me. Like I had a woman come up to me the other day when I was at the track, and she said, I just really, really want to get some coaching or training, but I'm in an entry-level job. I'm quite young. I don't have the funds to drop on these sorts of things. In fact, right now she only does half days at the track because it's cheaper. And so for me, I think CSS is the dream. I think it is fantastic. I've heard only good things about CSS from start to finish. Everybody loves it, raves on about it, but it is also a big commitment because obviously up here in Queensland, it's that having to go out to Morgan Park for a couple of days. You've got to then get your accommodation. It's far away. Like even when we do the ladies' days at Morgan Park, that's quite far for a lot of women. So they don't end up coming. Whereas when you find something a little bit closer to like Brisbane or a little bit closer to the areas that they're actually in, it's not as bad. So it's just trying to find that accessibility piece. Sorry, my dog was chewing a piece of plastic. It's just fixing that.
Oh, good.
Don't know why she did that.
Yeah,
Don't even know how
it's
she got that.
I
Anyway,
I do appreciate that because the CSS is not cheap. It's a logistical. No, I won't. Yeah, I would. I'd say it's a logistical problem that has to be solved every event because they fly the coaches in from everywhere. North
and
Queensland,
that's
New
why it's so
Zealand.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it's so good because you get top tier coaching. But again, for a lot of those beginners, they don't need that top tier coaching yet.
Mm,
Like I think it would be fantastic for them, but they're looking at it going, that just seems so unattainable for a lot of them.
mm,
And for me, my goal, and I've said this to anyone who would listen, is I'm not there to take a race coach's forte. That's not my forte. My forte is to get people in to begin with, give them enough confidence to then say, okay, now you're at that level. I'm going to pass you over to CSS, or I'm going to pass you over to a race coach over here, or someone who's going to really refine those skills. Because even if I could teach it, it's not necessarily what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about bringing people to the track to begin with and opening that pathway for them, so that they can then get to that point. And so for me, CSS is phenomenal. I would love to one day do that myself again. But it's again that cost piece. It's the availability to get there. And in addition to that, like even when, I've spoken to people about where they go to the track, they're like, oh, I don't have a trailer, or I don't, like, I'm riding my road bike out there or whatever. And it's 2.5 hours away from Brisbane for Morgan Park. Then
Mm.
there's, again, the accommodation piece and all the costs involved with that in comparison to a place like Queensland Raceway or even Lakeside, but Queensland Raceway specifically, where it's, maybe an hour, people could ride there. They don't need to book accommodation. Sometimes the women actually live out near there, so it's not too far. And it just makes it a little bit easier and then also a bit more cost effective too, because you can
Mm.
back it onto the end of another track day if you want to.
I never thought about that. It's not just the fees for the event; it's also
Mm.
all of the other stuff. Because obviously I get paid to go and do it with them, and but I do recognise the travel because it takes me a day to get anywhere.
Exactly.
Day to
Yeah.
get
It
home.
takes so long. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, again, like, as I said before, not to say that men don't have kids, but if you look at it from the traditional perspective, if someone's, for example, a single mum,
Yeah.
they've then got to get childcare for their kid. They've got to go and get someone who will do childcare overnight. They've got to get family members to get involved. A lot of women don't have that confidence either to load a bike up if they do have a trailer. A lot of women don't know what they need to take to the track. Like, it's just, so it's all the logistics around it that make it seem so unattainable. And then you go and put, oh,
Mm.
by the way, it's a gajillion dollars or whatever it is. I'm not going to quote CSS prices, but you get really fantastic coaches, but they're going, the coaches are fine. I just don't even know how to get to that
Mm.
point yet. I don't know how to get there. I don't know what I need to take with me, and it all just seems very intimidating. And then in addition to, CSS is a phenomenal curriculum and has really, really great outcomes, and everybody's sort of in their different groupings, whereas a track day just seems a little bit less formal, I
Mm.
think. So for them, they're like, oh, if I'm, I don't know if I can swear, but if they say, if I'm shit, no one's going to really notice and no one's really going to care because
Mm.
everybody's just doing recreational stuff. Comparative to CSS, where everybody is there, some of them are racers, you've got top tier coaches, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's finding people where they're at and then bringing them along on the journey to then, once they've sort of done a little bit with me or with another coach or whatever the case is, then I go, cool, now do CSS. Go and do, professional top tier coaching, that sort of thing.
Okay. It's kind of appropriate for me to reference your website. It's trackstart, one word, trackstart.com.au.
Yep.
Um, how long have you been running that? How does it work? Where do you run it? Give us a bit of info about
Great
that.
questions. I literally just started it. It was actually quite funny. I didn't want to start a business, if I'm honest. For me, as I've said to many people, this is more of a passion project because I never wanted anyone to feel the way that I did or not have the support that I did when I first started. So those kinds of things I was referencing before. So for me, I didn't actually want to charge anything. I already volunteer my time. I volunteer coach the Queensland Junior Cup kids, who are like the Queensland version of Oceania Cup kids. I volunteer coach that. I take that out of my own time, my own money. I go out there for 2 days and I coach them at Morgan Park or QR, wherever they are. I volunteered at QR and I did coaching and marshalling there. And I don't get paid for that. So for me, it's never going to be, and it was never about the money. However, in getting my level two motorcycling Australia coach accreditation, I found that I still couldn't go out and find any opportunities to coach women. And that, I'm a bit of a stubborn bitch, because I was like, I'm not going to tolerate that. I'll make my own. If no one's going to help me and no one's going to give me a path, I'll make my own. So I ended up starting the company with the anticipation that, okay, if I do that, then I can go and hire my own tracks and just make it happen for women. But obviously, again, road race, there's a very big cost barrier and it
Mm.
is intensely expensive to hire a track, especially with MA coaching sort of regulations and guidelines where you can only have a maximum of 25 people under a level two coach with a level one also assisting you, which means, for example, if it was a $20,000 track hire, that's not including medical, food, or whatever else you're supplying on the day if you need volunteers or officials. Just for the 20K, I'd have to split that among 25 people, which again, not cost
Mm.
accessible at all. So I just kept getting barrier after barrier after barrier. I would go to coaches and say, okay, well, can I do Can I help you here? And I would get no opportunities to do that. I tried coaching through my local club, got no opportunities for that. I tried going to other tracks and also providers and just saying, can I do what some other coaches do where they just provide like one-on-one coaching from the pits or whatever. Like I don't want to turn up to your track day and just do it and not tell you. That's a bit rude. And I just couldn't get any answers. So I figured at least this way I can go and maybe try like go-kart tracks and start small and hire those because they're a bit cheaper and just start building
Mm.
up a rapport with people and also with different events and track providers to then eventually get to that point. So that's how I started it. The idea behind it is obviously to keep it as cost accessible as possible. So for me, I don't give a shit about being paid. I'll probably put like a little bit on top for a charity and do like a big donation each year, and then just provide it at cost price for women just to get them in. And also nervous riders. I don't discriminate on gender. I just find that, my passion is obviously getting more women into it.
Yeah, that's challenging, that, because when you do the maths, a $20,000 hire, and then trying to split it amongst women, and then you participants, and then you're limited on numbers, it all doesn't work out. Um,
No.
do you think? And again, this is probably a segue to the other part of it,
Hmm.
because you're on the board of Motorcycling Queensland. You're on a
Yes.
subcommittee for Motorcycling Australia.
Yep.
Um, do you think? And again, I don't fully understand the role beyond regulations and rules and all that when it
Yep.
comes to MA and MQ. But do you think there's enough support, or the MQ and MA do enough to support this type of activity? Because it's pretty, it's obviously well intended, and it's going to add a lot of value to the
Mhm.
riding community. Do you think there's enough
Yep.
support, or could they do more? What could they do? What are your thoughts?
I think we're getting there. I think it's been a hard slog. And this is also another thing Rebecca said to me the other day. She said, I'm sort of trailblazing the way, if you will. And I was like, well, if people could stop beating the shit out of me while I'm doing it, that would be nice because just copying it from every angle, in terms of, again, those barriers to entry, but also to opportunities. Like I've been, again, as I said before, even trying to go and coach in places that already offer coaching, and I've been the subject of misogyny. I've had abusive messages. I've had screenshots from other coaches. I've had, really distasteful things said about me, and not just necessarily even because I'm a female, but just people putting me down as a result of my not wanting to race. When I've always said from day one that that's never been my intention. And the people that I'm trying to help, I'm not doing it for money, firstly. And secondly, I'm doing it to get more people into the sport to start off with. They don't need to be fast to enjoy the hobby and sport that we all love. So it's been really difficult to try and find pathways forward. And then, even people say to me, oh, well, if you're on the MQ board and you've got, you're in a subcommittee for MA and you've got, you can speak to all these people, can't you enact change? And it's like, not really, because I can voice these concerns, I can have conversations, but change takes time and it takes policy and it takes regulation, as you said. But in addition to that, it's also how do we get this across without it having negative connotations? Because for me, it's about re education. It's about giving those people who don't understand women's place in sport an understanding of what we can bring to it. But in addition to that, why them not allowing other coaches in that space or not allowing women in that space or people who don't race or whatever else you want the criteria to be is only to the detriment of the sport that they know and love.
Mm.
Because the less people that you allow in, the less money, the less availability of time, the less track
Yep.
hire, and it just ends up killing the sport. So it's been really difficult and confusing for me to sit here and think, well, hang on, I'm literally bringing you people who would have never traditionally come to the track. Like I've already got over 30 people who have said, when can you coach me? When can you take me to the track? How can we start this? And all I did was mention I was thinking about it. So when it gets to the point where, rubber hits the road, you're missing out on this entire area of people for the sake of what? Ego? For the sake of not having,
Yeah, right.
race skills or and again, it's not even about that. Like the more track days you can run, the more money a club gets, the more events that they can run for your racing. So it's very interesting to watch people sort of cut their noses off to spite their own face to start off with. But in terms of the MA and MQ side of things, we've got the MA board that connects into the subcommittee as well, and that subcommittee is the Women in Motorsport Committee. And we've been trying for many years to get things across the line for women's initiatives. I myself am the only level 2 road race coach that is a female in Queensland. And so for me, in addition to trying to help get more women into the sport, I'm also going to try and get more women into coaching, because I'm not ever going to gatekeep on that. I want as many women into the sport as humanly possible at every level. That includes coaching. So the process itself, it is really difficult to navigate to get to that level of coaching. It takes a really long time, and I literally dedicated probably thousands of dollars to getting to this point, and lots of time and money spent. Like, I went out to QMP for 3 days where I watched people ride dirt bikes and had to shadow coach there, and I've never ridden a dirt bike until then, so that was interesting. To get my hours up, because it is an hours process too. And even off the back of that, I said, there's more women in dirt than there is in road race. Can we maybe take some of those initiatives that they're doing and bring them over? But they're just not really the same. They're really hard to replicate across the disciplines. So trying to use the MQ board to sort of enact any different changes and getting grants across off the ground as well is something that we're working on. And I'm working with Kelly from MQ, and she's amazing at this. And the board as well has been quite supportive in trying to get things across the line. From MA's perspective, they obviously have that committee that's working towards women's initiatives. But again, we rely heavily on trying to get grants funding because we are volunteers on boards. And the one thing was Kate, who is on our women's committee, we worked together really well with the rest of the committee too, actually, to put together like some grant sort of proposals with the federal government, and they were declined because, again, there's not enough women in motorsport or motorcycling, if you will, to make it viable for them to go, oh, okay, we will invest some more time into it. So it's a double-edged sword. You can't win. You try and get more women into it by getting more grants, but you can't get the grants because there's not enough women in it. And so you end up going around in this circle. So I got frustrated with that, as I said, bit of a stubborn bitch. And I just thought, well, if there's not enough women in the sport to get grants, I'll bring them to the sport and I'll do it myself. And I think once we get that, then we can really start getting more initiatives funded, getting more grants, getting more support across the board. But it's just like every step forward you take, you end up having to go back a few and redo things and then take another step forward. So long-winded way of saying kind of.
I find it frustrating just, listening to the reality of what's happening, and that's not you, that's just the reality of the way that you can't get funding and things like that. Yet if you want to study, there was a list of stupid grants the government was giving, like, studying the sexual preferences of an ant or something, and they're getting huge funding for these stupid things. I don't get it. It's a weird thing, but it's also very short-sighted, because if you look across the board, like you look at um, NRL, they've now got the
Yep.
NRLW and then the AFLW and the the women's basketball and women's swimming. I mean,
Yep.
it is growing in every specific area. So it's inevitable that this is going to grow. I mean, it's going to happen eventually. It's just for some reason they're
Yep.
putting their head in the sand over it.
And we've got some phenomenal female talent coming out of Australia when it
Mm.
comes to motorcycling, like the likes of Taylor Ralph, Tara Morrison. We even got Avalon Biddle in New Zealand, but we'll claim her because she's great. And just some, phenomenal talent. But again, they've had to jump through hurdles to get to where they need to get to,
Yeah.
in comparison to their male counterparts.
Mm.
And all there's that bloody saying that I hate is like, oh yeah, you're really fast for a girl. It's like it's not.
Yeah, right.
It's not the point. The point is you're just fast. That's it. Doesn't matter what's between your legs or what isn't between your legs. It's you're just fast. And I think trying to get more women into space will inevitably, kill that sort of side of things, but it will take a very long time. But if we
Mm.
don't start now, we're never going to get there. So I guess I'm a bit impatient, and that's probably also why I ended up where I am, which is starting my own stuff and trying to get things happening because I'm
Yeah.
sick of waiting. I'm sick of talking about things, sick of talking about female initiative and never getting anywhere. And ultimately, as again, as Rebecca said, I'm a bit of a trailblazer in that space, but I don't intend to. I'm just happy to cop all the hits as long as it means the next woman who tries to do these things doesn't have to.
Yeah. Have you
And
ever gone overseas and looked at, like, I talked to Chappie in New Zealand. We're talking about junior riders a fair bit. And one of the countries that we obviously reference is a country that is just thriving in the space of, competitive motorcycling, and that's Spain. Have
oh,
you
absolutely.
have you ever gone and looked at a country like Spain and see what they do in this particular space with women riders, but also junior women riders?
I haven't, but I would love to. The biggest thing is even trying to get an inkling of where to begin there too. Like they've
Mm.
obviously got, and I'm probably going to quote people from the wrong countries because I just look at how fast they are and go, wow, that's amazing. But people like Maria Herrera, who won
Yeah.
the WCWR, um, and again, just phenomenal talent, but they sort of get capped. Like even if you look in the dirt bike space here, MXGP just happened up in Darwin, and it was apparently exceptional. 10 out of 10. Everybody said it was fantastically run, great initiative, really well put together, organized fantastic. And then they had a women's class. And for us, we don't have that in road race, in Australia at least. We've got that WCWR overseas where Taylor Ralph raced and where Avalon raced and where Tara did a couple of rounds in. And that's great, but we don't have that in Australia. So just even trying to find the capacity to do that, we can't do that because we don't have enough female racers to make one.
Mm.
And that's the problem we're seeing. We don't have enough women who even get into track riding to then get to racing to even begin our own class. And that's ultimately the goal. If we could build something and get enough women into racing, that we could build our own class, even if it is
Mm.
at that club level, state level, whatever. The dream might be even ASBK has its own, but it's having different classes as well that gives women those opportunities. We just don't have that in road race. We only have that over in the other side, the other disciplines.
You don't think there's enough women? Because it's like, I always wonder if you just had open the class up, if that wouldn't attract people who would compete. Like, like there was never an NRLW. It wasn't like,
Mm,
that emerged from something else. I don't even know if they had club level, women's rugby league and AFL and whatever. But I do
mm.
wonder if clubs just put events on, for women if they're going to separate the
Yeah,
classes. Because to me, it makes sense. It creates a
yeah,
space, and it also opens the opportunity up for that particular part of the community to compete, what they would probably feel is a fairer level or something. I don't know, but whatever.
yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts about that? Because, that would be my bias.
I think that it would be great to test it. I'm a big fan of give something a crack and see what happens, honestly.
Mm.
But personally, at least from where I'm at, I've only maybe met like three women who race and all completely different levels, at least at this club level. Completely different bike sizes, and different areas. So it'd be really quite difficult, I think, to put together a women's class and then have it only in a certain CCs because you obviously got like the thousands
Yeah.
that race against each other, 600 sort of jazz. We've got incredible races like Kiri Wells, who ends up being the only female in 1000cc on the grid.
Mm.
And great people like Taylor Elf, who ends up being either, well, I think she'd probably go into the 600s now or what the new classes might be, but again, completely different class. So whether we would get more people by having it, I'm not sure, but from what I can see, a lot of women are too hesitant to even get into racing for the
Mm.
kinds of experiences they had already. And that's kind of what I'm aiming to hopefully, I wouldn't say fix, but at least ease a little bit.
Yeah. It's a tricky one, eh? I don't know what it is about our culture. Maybe the population's too small or something. Because how many people are in Spain? I think they've got a bigger population than Australia. That,
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I need to Google that.
but that would be the
But
place to go. It'd be interesting if, maybe pursue a grant for,
I'll get a
women
grant and
racing
they'll
and
say, no, you
exploration.
can't because female oriented.
Yeah, but you get a lot of references. So it might be a useful thing to chase because
Yeah.
Anyway, like I said, they're funding grants to study the
Yeah.
sexual preferences of ants. So,
Yeah, exactly. So they can fund something cool, at least for motorcycles. And like I think that's the other thing like that I was sort of going to mention is even just having that female presence at the track makes such a big difference in terms of not necessarily opening it up for women, but showing them that like you can do it. That there were a couple of times through the QJC the last year that I've gone to volunteer and I've just been like, what am I doing here? I'm not wanted. I'm not sort of, people don't want me here. The other coaches aren't interested in having me around. And why am I bothering spending all this money, spending all this time on annual leave from my work, doing all this sort of stuff to come out here and help ultimately a bunch of boys, because that's all there is in QJC,
mm,
um, to get better. And then I turned up on the first day and I saw there was one girl who was wearing a hoodie from ECFR, so from my group, and she was, I think, 15. And I was like, that's why we do it. For that little girl, for that
mm,
girl who comes to track, to show them that, yeah, okay, you might be the only one, but you still have a place here. And I was like, I just need to keep turning up. And I kept turning up. And then there was two girls, and then there was three girls. And I think there's still three, maybe four coming in for QJC. And that's exactly why I volunteer my time, to show them that even though, people might treat you differently or might be cruel or whatever, there's no point getting, worried about it because you have a place here and you deserve it just as much as any of those other kids. And that girl, the first one that I was speaking about, I won't name names because obviously they're kids, but um, she ended up getting a podium for one of her races recently, and that was phenomenal to see. And even if that was as a result of all the other coaches having their input and all that sort of thing, it still meant a lot to see that a girl had a place in QJC as equal as everybody else.
yeah. It's it. Do like she was 15, that girl. Do
Yeah.
you think there's enough space for junior females? Because I get a sense that the the male, the kids in the male group, they're starting much earlier. It's kind of like a son thing more than
Yep.
anything. Do you think there's enough emphasis, or are there barriers when it comes to young girls riding?
I would say that it's definitely more likely that it will be a young boy. They definitely start earlier. I find the pathway for young girls is it usually tends to be, and this is again not always the case, but usually it tends to be that they've started on dirt.
Mm,
Probably they've got a dad who wanted to, or they've got a brother who was doing dirt, or whatever the case is. And then they kind of end up just following in the footsteps of their brother, or following in the footsteps of, okay, well, we're in dirt now, go try road. And so I think there needs to be more of a not a push necessarily, but more emphasis on you can do it. You don't need to have, a brother who does it, or you don't need to start on dirt.
mm,
You can just start here. But road race is a little bit harder because of the regulations around it and the speed at which you're riding. And the age range, like when we're doing our coaching through Motorcycling Australia, we learn how to do a kickstart program, which is how to teach young kids, like very young, at 4, 5, whatever the case is when they first start, how to just start a dirt bike, how to get on a dirt bike, what the controls mean, all that sort of stuff. And by the time, you get to QJC, you've already done the kickstart many, many years ago because you most likely started in dirt. So there is this missing piece where if that child hasn't started in dirt, we're then having to do a kickstart program that's so you're teaching them those fundamentals, but there's so many things that don't necessarily apply. And it's that building a bit more popularity around road race as well. Because ultimately here in Brisbane, we have one club,
mm.
one race club. That's it. Um, and I think the nearest one other than that is maybe like Townsville, I think. Don't quote me on that. There might be others, but road race wise, that's it. So the opportunities for them to even get out and do road racing are intensely limited because it is limited to what racing there is at the time that is actually allocated by the club and the track that they operate in. And a lot of the time as well, they have to be under a coaching permit. They can't just go and do a recreational track day, which is good because that is safe for them. You don't want them just chuck them out with a bunch of randoms. But again, if they're not doing a coaching permit, which can only be given by a club or by a coach, you can't just go to a QR day and then start riding. It's not feasible. So there are a lot of barriers for them even getting time on the track to begin
Yeah.
with.
I think there's more club like when you said Townsville, Road Racing Association of Townsville, I'm a member of that.
Oh,
And
good. Yep.
yeah, and they've only just started, the last couple of years with the
Yep.
track because they finally got some decent facilities and, which is my big bugbear is the fact that there's just a lack of facilities around the place.
Agreed. Yep.
Little mini go-kart tracks. Yeah, I get it, but that's not keeping people off the road. The people that
Exactly. Yep.
they got this motorcycling. What is it? Big program at the moment, motorcycle awareness
Ride
or
to zero.
something. Like the
Ride
police
to
thing, the
zero.
government.
Yeah.
What is it?
Ride to zero. I was actually going to sort of touch on that. The Ride to Zero grants. So for us in ECFR, we actually were a participant of that. We because we're an incorporated association, we applied for funding to try and again get more women into anything possible, anything road riding, anything motorcycling at all, actually. And I found them okay, but as I've said to a couple of people, it's a great initiative in theory, but it's not actually targeting the fatalities that they're foreseeing.
Correct.
The aim of the Ride to Zero program is to try and lower the amount of fatalities on the road. It's trying to get people into more defensive riding programs, give them more understanding of how to operate their vehicle in a defensive manner on the road, which is fine, except that the people who are willing to do that training or think that they need that training are not the same people that
Mm,
are doing the dumb shit on the roads and dying.
correct.
And again, for anyone listening, I'm not saying people don't die for things that aren't their fault. I'm just saying the specifics that they're trying to target are people who are out there doing things that they shouldn't be doing. I'm probably one of those people, just quietly, because we all have done some dumb stuff in our youths, probably also still now, but we won't mention that. And I think for for them to really make that program effective, and I've floated with this a million people, is that they actually need to start pushing people towards track days. And I recognize that for the government, that's not necessarily something they want to do. But ultimately, the people who are doing those things on the road are doing it because there's nowhere else for them to do it. It's either
Mm,
not financially viable for them to go to the track, they don't know how to. Again, that niche in the middle that I was talking about, where they don't understand even how to get to that point to begin with. And so they go, well, there's no other option. I'm going to have to go wheelie over here and I'm going to have to go and do 200 Ks in the middle of traffic and I'm going to have to filter, and do all the dumb stuff that gives me that adrenaline rush directly in the middle of traffic, where there is also a bunch of other people who are driving cars that don't know how to drive well. And so you end up with this awkward space where they're going, yeah, this is a really great initiative and we've had so many people do it, but ultimately they're not even in the age range of people that they're trying to target to begin with. And in addition to that, it's not actually stopping them from doing dumb stuff on the road because they're not the ones doing the initiative to begin with. I mean, perfect example has been the fatalities that we've seen recently, where there was, I think
mm.
last week, we saw 4 in Brisbane alone of just motorcyclists, young, very young. And it's definitely sad. It is devastating. And I myself have watched friends die in front of me. I've seen fatalities. I've been first responders to it. And it doesn't change over time because it's still the same people that are doing the same things. It's just that they're not as lucky one time. And those are the people that you want to go, we understand you want to go and do adrenaline rush things. Maybe we take it somewhere else that's a little bit more controlled. I would never say that it's safer. Completely disagree that the track is safer because you are at a higher risk of going faster. But I would say that it's at least in a space where an ambulance is right there. It's controlled. There's people watching. We've had multiple instances here in Brisbane where people have died because they've gone riding on their own and had an accident and they've gone off the side of the road and they haven't been found for a couple of days. So doing that at the track, there's people watching, there's help available. Even if something does go horribly wrong, you have that first aid, you've got that medical assistance that's right there ready to go, rather than being out in a rural area like Mount Glorious or Nebo or what have you, and you're waiting 45 minutes for an ambulance. So I think that there needs to be some kind of change here. I don't know if the government will listen to that, but
Mm.
ultimately it's sort of it's necessary if they want to address that specific area of it, or if they're willing to just go, here, have some money to go do defensive riding courses, then I guess they're doing that already.
Yeah. There's definitely a shortfall in something there. I talk to I ride on the street all the time, like every weekend, and my lady and I go for a ride in the GS and whatever. So I do a lot of road stuff. But
Oh,
people
lovely.
people wonder why, I'm pretty comfortable riding down the back of the group and just cruising up the range with someone. I don't, and the reason is I get so much track time. The track time takes away the need to get your kicks, on a road, which I think is one of the lacking things. But then, you touched on it as well. When it comes to skill level is lacking as well. You know, I at the school at CSS we do a steering drill for level ones, and I swear more than 60% of students that I've run through a steering drill cannot demonstrate how to steer a bike properly. Like we don't
Yep.
ask them to tell
And I
us,
think
just
as well,
show us. And,
just
and
do it.
struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time too, people go, oh, well, clearly the problem must be with Q Ride. And it's like, no, not necessarily. It's not with Q Ride. It's with Q Ride is getting people to get to the road. But it's like with anything, you never stop learning. So if you're on the road and you are applying the skills that you already have, would you not want to go and learn more? And that's where the defensive riding classes are really good for that sort of thing. That teaches you how to be defensive against, hazards, against other traffic, etc. But where you're going into that territory of doing faster speeds, doing silly things, trying to push your limits, you need to actually get the skills to do that. And a defensive riding course is not going to teach you that either.
No, correct.
And ultimately, no amount of skills either is going to teach you how to get out of a bad situation if you start doing those silly things. However, having the skill to not get in that situation to begin with is kind of that point. And it's really tiring because, you see all of these grants going ahead and all of these people doing these courses, and you think that's great, but you're not even the target audience that they're wanting to get a hold of. And while you're watching people do these courses, you're seeing on the news, 19-year-old died headfirst into a car, another kid died, went off a cliff, and it's so devastating. You just think of how much life could have been changed just by trying to do something a little bit different, maybe, unorthodox.
I agree with you, but I
Mm.
don't know. I don't know what the answer is. That's why, excuse me, that's why I wanted to ask you about MQ and MA because,
Yeah,
what is the pathway? It seems like there's just a lack of support for it or something at a government level because it's not getting votes. I talked to Steph Bowater, who's the president of RRAT in Townsville, and
yeah,
mainly about funding because when I joined the club, we had to drive up. It's now you got to drive up the dirt road to the track. They don't even have a road built for it properly. The
yeah,
facilities are pretty crappy. The track's wonderful and the people are awesome, but they can't even get funding to finish the track properly,
yeah,
which just pisses me off no end.
yeah.
This lack of recognition that these facilities are primary to the whole thing. You need the facilities, and
Exactly,
but
exactly.
then you
And
need
yeah, and I was going to say, and that's what I mean when I say, the government puts a lot of this time and money and effort into these defensive riding courses, and that's fine. But even then, where are you going to do those defensive riding courses?
yeah,
Are
correct.
you going to take people out on the road and teach them while they're around cars, or are you going to need those facilities to teach it? And so it's so frustrating because again, it's a
Mm,
double-edged sword in terms of, build the facilities and the people will come. Take it
yeah,
to the
correct.
track, get people to the track to do the track days, and then double whammy use those tracks to teach your defensive riding skills. Whether it's again like a little mini go-kart track for a little skid pan or whatever the case is in the back end, you need to have facilities to be able to facilitate that.
Mm.
And it's very tiring because even in my adventures of trying to find somewhere that will let me coach at a mildly cost effective capacity, I found a couple and I was able to get through to the potential of hiring them, and then they go, yeah, yeah, that's great. We have a 75 decibel limit. A Ninja 400 in a stock exhaust is over 80. What possible vehicle could you be talking about? 75. Like, are you kidding me? And why would you have that on a racetrack? It's already a racetrack. And some of them are used by V8 supercars, or they're used by cars to do, I don't know, like speed
Skid.
things,
Yeah.
skids and stuff. And you're like, so really it's not the decibel, it's the no motorcycles. Um, which again, it's not going to solve your problem. People are going to ride motorcycles whether you like it or not. It's, do you want to help facilitate getting them further skills? Do you want to help get them off the road so that they don't do those dumb things around you? Do you want to actually have people
Mm.
learn the things that they need to learn to not do those on the road, or to at least get out of them if they do? Or are we just going to keep, vilifying people on motorcycles, exacerbate the problem, and just have more deaths, more problems, and more issues for everybody all around? And I feel like that's kind of where everything's going, where the government's going, everybody's dying. Wow, that really sucks. Let's do nothing about it and just ignore it.
I know you'll do traffic blitzes.
Yeah, yeah, traffic blitzes. Yeah, defect stations because exhausts kill people. So should be worried about that.
This is
Yeah.
not just a bike issue, it's a car issue as well. Because
Oh,
it's the
yeah,
same
my
thing.
brother. Yeah,
Yeah.
my brother has the same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Um, to go back to your track start, um,
yep.
get on track site, how can people get involved with that? Like, no, actually, let me ask you a different question. If we've got female riders out there listening who are hesitant, about
Mhm.
doing this, and it was interesting because I just remembered I spoke to Danica Hampton about this, and she said she was one of the few women who went to the track on her own. Like it's like that was an unusual activity. So, which is a
Yeah.
contributing factor as well.
Yeah.
She felt comfortable turning up, but she's a world champion powerlifter, so she probably beat most people up anyway
Yeah.
in her
So
race.
she beat him up. That's fine. We love her. Yep.
But so you've got women, potentially fearful of going there just because they have to go there by themselves or something like that. Or you've also got female riders out there who would like to, but they're hesitant to for some other reason. What type of advice would you give those women? What should they do, to pursue this?
Mhm. So for me, I feel like it's hard for me to just say just do it because as I said before, logistically nightmare. But in addition to that, there are so many internal and external pressures that make it so difficult for women to even do that in the first place. So that's kind of what I'm aiming to do. So if that was the case, I would say reach out to me, reach out to anyone, reach out to literally any single person you know and you trust that's done a track day. And whether they say, come with them or whatever the case is, even if they just say, here's my advice, here's what you need on the day, take it and do it because you deserve to take up as much space as anybody else. For for what I'm trying to do, I am also going to try and put together guides because, again, this isn't about money for me. And I just need to keep reiterating that because a lot of people were like, oh, you're doing this to try and capitalize. And that is completely not the case. So, what I want to do is, even if women don't want to get coaching through me, that's fine. I'm still going to provide a guide on what you need to take for a track day, the things that you need to be mindful of, where you can get your gear from. And that's what I meant as well when I talked about ECFR having sponsors. We send people to sponsors, supporters, businesses, whatever the case is, that we know women are going to be treated right or that they're going to have the same opportunity as anybody else. So places like Race and Road and Rakondi that have some of the only female fitting leathers that I've ever found because my biggest thing when I tried to get into track was there were no female leathers, at least in my size, maybe like size 6. Um, and that meant that it was a huge barrier for me to doing a track day because that's the first thing you need for a track day is a leather suit. So one of the things that we've done in the past too, in addition to that, is at some track days we'll have like the sort of a come and try group where women can wear their Kevlars or their things that they wear on the road because there was no availability for women's leathers. And that's a barrier to entry that a lot of guys have never experienced.
Hmm.
Um, so things like that, that you might be hesitant on. I'm going to create those guides. I'm going to put them up on the website for free. You just go on and you find them and you can, get a list of the things you need to keep in mind, or especially if I'm maybe not in your area. Like a lot of people have said, oh, can you come to Melbourne and do coaching here? Can you come to, like someone asked me to go to Townsville and do it. And I was like, yeah, but that's a lot of money. So let me save up a little
Hmm.
bit first to try and get myself there. But without needing me to be there, you'll still be empowered because you'll have the list of things that you need. You'll have, support networks. You'll find people in those groups that would be able to guide you on what they've done. And then the ones that I can help, getting them to then help on their next person. So saying, any information I give you, take that and give it to the next person. Anything I tell you to take to the track, tell the next person that might approach you about it or another female friend that you might have. And hopefully we create this giant network of women and everybody just goes to the track and everybody's happy.
Yeah, cool. Plus, I can go to your website, trackstart.com.au.
Yep. Yep.
Join the Facebook group, East Coast
Yep.
Female
So I've got
Riders.
Yeah, I got a Facebook page for track start training. Again, it's only just starting because as I said, I was very stubborn and I was like, screw it, I'm not waiting, I'll make it myself. So I've got the website, I've got my Facebook page, I've got an Instagram. I've just put up a Google form if people are interested in wanting track days, just so that I can get sort of an idea of numbers. Again, I'm trying to make it as cost effective for everybody. But also being a level two, I've got to have another level one there. So I'm happy not to be paid, but I think having the level one there, I will need to pay them to be there. So just trying to get an idea of numbers and how much it'll cost to get as many women there as I can. And then also just pursuing as many avenues as possible. So if you have ideas, feel free to email them through to me using the website or the contact form. I'm open to literally everything ever. And I'm also working with another coach. I won't name names yet until it's formalized, who's down south. He's a bit of a big deal, which is very scary for me, but I'm just gonna, like I said before, just gonna do it. And just trying to put together some like proper race-ish days where he will do the coaching of people who want to get into racing so we can help get more women into racing too. But as I said before, it's not just for women. I'm happy to help everybody. It's just that I happen to have a secret little passion for getting more women to the track. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
and if if you're in the eastern side of Australia, feel free to join East Coast Female Riders. And if you're on the western side, I don't know, so I can't help you.
Very cool. You're wearing an addicted track shirt.
Yeah, this is my QJC shirt. I want to help the juniors. I don't know if you could see it.
Ah, right, right, right. So there's people there. Shout
Yeah.
out to Mark McGregor and
Shout out
Steph.
to Mark and shout out to
Shout out
Lisa
to
and
Andrew
Steph. We
Smart.
love Steph. Yeah, we love Smarty. We love Steph. Mark has been one of the biggest supporters of women. So I can't thank him enough for always dealing with my rants and answering my calls. So we love Mark and Steph has been awesome and she is so good to see at the track and Smarty and Lisa, they put everything into everything they have to support female riders. So we love them. We love them a lot.
I laugh because where you earlier you said that saying you don't like ride like a girl. I go, spent some
Yes.
time on track with Steph, and I'm telling you, I wish I could ride like that girl.
Oh my God, don't we all? Every time
Yeah.
I see her, I'm like, I'm her biggest fan. I'm trying not to like fangirl over her because that would be weird. But every time I see her, I'm like, act cool, act cool. She's so fast.
Well, even
Um,
even like
but yeah,
the
she, yeah,
the road racing, women's road racing championship as well. The like people, I look at that right, and people don't realize how fast they are going. They're going faster than 90% of men, 99% of men.
yep, and that's the thing. Like they are
Mm.
insanely fast, but people
Yeah.
just go, "Oh yeah, but it's a women's event. Like it's actually not that quick." But it's like, no, no. If you take the times they're doing and
Yeah.
compare that to your average race at that exact track, they are very quick.
Yeah,
It's just
real
that they
fast.
happen to need another opportunity to get into that space, and this is it. So making those comparables, I think, would be a really good, interesting experiment. I think because again, people go, yeah, they're fast, but they're fast for a girl. Whereas if you look at those times and then grab times of other people at that
Mm.
track and then put them together, you'd go, oh shit, they're actually very quick.
Yep.
Very quick.
Yeah. And the racing's great. Like I'm a fan because the racing's good.
They
Like
are.
you,
Oh,
you can watch, like you can sit and watch MotoGP. I go, well, at the moment we're watching a procession. We're not seeing much racing. It's like Formula One. And
boring.
then
Yep.
you go to Moto 3, which is slower. You go way more
Yep.
exciting. And women's road racing is very much like that at the moment. It's very cool.
They are
Mm.
savage. One of my fondest memories with knowing Taylor Ralph was when she came in once, and I can't remember where it was. I don't even know if I was there or if I'd just seen it like broadcast or whatever, but and she'd gone out and she was racing and she'd gotten so close to someone that part of their fairing had actually cut her leg up through her leathers because they were like elbows out
Yeah,
racing.
right.
Anyway, she came in and she was, God, that woman is strong. She literally just went, oh well, and they stitched it up and everything, and she went back out racing. Right on the leg. The whole leg's cut open. There's a huge gash, and I was like, oh my God, she is
That's
formidable.
wild. That's wild.
Insanity. Yes. Yes, very tough.
Well, listen, April, I've taken a bunch of your time. You describe yourself as stubborn, and I wouldn't use that word. I would use the word you're a go-getter lady. I
Oh yeah.
I really admire it, what you're doing because you're stepping up and filling a space that needed filling. So I'm a fan. Very, very cool. And I'd love to talk more. We'll get
Yeah,
together again after,
absolutely.
in 6 months' time or a year's time or something, see what happens. But thank you for making the time to come and chat to us. And for those who, want to connect, particularly in the female riding space, the links to your website and the different Facebook pages that you've got and groups we'll have in the show notes down the bottom.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time, George. And I really appreciate the opportunity. And just for any girls out there, just do it. Just send it.